Okay, so recall that we are talking about higher order functions, right? These are Haskell functions that take other functions as arguments. Okay, and this is different from returning a function as a result, because almost every Haskell function can be thought of as any Haskell function which takes more than one parameter uh, is technically returning a function. Okay, every Haskell function takes one argument and returns a function. Okay, but the argument that it takes can itself be a function, and that is what we are looking at. And two very important examples of this is what is called map and filter. We quickly looked at map in the last class. Let us just go over it a little more slowly. So here is the example. Capitalize.
Sir, your screen is not shared.
Oh, my screen is not shared. I thought it was shared. Sorry.
Sir, it's shared.
Is it shared or not?
Yes, it's shared.
It is shared, yeah. Right. So who says the screen is not shared?
I mean, I cannot see it. I don't know about others.
Oh, Mohammed, there is one. So what about others? Can anyone tell me they can see it? You can see the PDF file, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's shared.
Okay. So Mohammed, there is one. So maybe you should. I don't know.
I'll leave and join again.
Yeah, you leave and join. Yeah. Okay. So here is the pattern behind the map. So you have this function capitalize, which the behavior is that it should turn every letter in the string to uppercase. Okay. So capitalize of empty string is nothing but empty string, but capitalize of non-empty string, which will be some character followed by some other characters. So C followed by C's. Okay. It is 2 upper of C, because 2 upper, remember, is the function that converts a character to uppercase, followed by capitalized C's. Okay. That is the rest of the thing you want to capitalize. Similarly, you have a list of integers and you want to square every element in the list. So you can say square list empty list is empty list. Square list x followed by x is x squared colon square list x. Okay. So this is the pattern, and the common pattern is that there is some particular function. In the first case, it is 2 upper. In the second case, it is powering. The section raised to the power 2. You take your input and raises it to 4. So there is one fixed function that you want to apply to every member in the list, every element of the list. And this is achieved by the built-in function called map. Okay. Map takes 2 arguments. The first argument is a function. The second argument is a list. Okay. Can somebody tell what the types could be? A general list is of what type? Any list. What is the most general type you can give to a list? And this function is a function that you have to apply on every element of A. So what will the function type be?
Integer to integer. And like
A to
something. Because it is A, right? This is list of A. This is x naught to x. In general, I'm asking. In this example, it is integer. That is fine.
In general, all of them can be of any type, just same.
What? Once more? Yes.
I mean, all the elements just need to be of same type.
That is fine. But I'm asking, what is the type of f? F is a function type. So it has to be some argument type, arrow, some result type. What is the argument type of f?
So list A to list A.
Why do you say list A to list A?
It just takes a value.
So if argument type of A, F is A, then the list should be list A.
Yeah, so the list is list A, so the argument type is A. What is the result type of F?
B. I mean,
B.
something.
And in which case, what will be the resulting list?
List of B.
List B.
List B, exactly. So that is the type of map. Okay, but let me first give you examples. Map of +3 on 268 will give you 5, 9, 11, because you are adding 3 to every element in the list. Map of *2 to 268 will give you 4, 12, 16, because you are multiplying every element by 2. Map of raised to the power 2 on 1, 2, 3, 4 will give you 1, 4, 9, 16. Okay, because you are squaring everything. Map 2 upper of SP Suresh will give you this, where every letter has been capitalized. Okay. Remember that 2 upper is smart. If it is not a lowercase letter, it won't do anything to it. It will just return the same thing. But if it is a lowercase letter, it will turn into a higher case, uppercase letter. Okay. Okay. So this is about the behavior of map. Here is another example. So given a list of lists, I want to sum the lengths of the inner list. So I have a list of int, and I want to return an int. Sum length is the name of the function. Sum length of the empty list, there is no list at all in this list, so that is 0. Sum length of x colon x is the first element x is a list. So find the length of x and then you add it to sum length of x. Okay, and instead of doing this way, you can use map. And the way to do it using map is to first say take the list L and map length on that list. Okay. Originally you have a list of integers. Now you'll have a list of integers, and this list will be the list of lengths of the corresponding elements of the original L. Okay. L has elements x1, x2, x3. Each xi is a list. So map length L will be numbers n1, n2, n3, where each ni is length of xi. Okay. Fine. Good. So now once you have this, you can sum it up by applying sum on top of this. Okay, so that's an example.
Sir,
Yes, please ask me.
no, I didn't like in the previous slide. I didn't understand what the type of F should be. Shouldn't it be list A to list B?
No, I'll come to that in a minute. I'll talk about the type in 2 slides later. Yeah.
Okay.
Or the behavior of map is just this. Okay, it is just exactly the same as the behavior as the functions we wrote here. Square list of empty list is empty list. Square list of x colon x is x squared followed by square list of x's. Instead of x squared, you write f of x. That's it. Okay, and instead of square list, you should write map f of x's. Right. So map f of empty list is just the empty list because there is nothing to map. Map f of x colon x is you first apply f to x and then you map f on the rest of this. Is this clear to everybody? Now, if you apply map f on x1, x2, x3, you will get the list fx1, fx2, fx3. Right? Should we work it out? Yes. So I can't say map. I'll have to put all these things inside comments. That's okay. Map f of empty list equals empty list. I'm saying map f of x colon x's equals map f of x followed by map f. Now let us figure out what map of x1, x2, x3 is. What is f1, f2? What is x1, x2, x3? It is just x1 followed by x2 followed by x3 followed by empty list. Right? So this is what. Okay. Now you just need to apply the definition. So what is the first thing? What will the first thing relate to? This is map of. This is what? Can somebody tell?
fx1 colon map of fx is.
Okay. Now this is equal to fx1 colon. What is this?
fx2 colon map fx3 colon m.
Now what? fx3 colon map of f1 empty list. But that's equal to what? What is map f1 empty list?
Empty list.
So therefore this is f of x1. recall that the colon operator is right associative. So when I write it this way, what I mean is that first do fx3, first do this, or when I write this, what I mean is first do this part, then do this part, okay, and then finally do the overall. Okay. I'll put all this inside comments. So you understand how map works, right? Map F on a list will apply F to every element of the list. Okay, good. So what is the type of map? The type is A arrow, B arrow, list A arrow, list B. Why? Because if you see, if you look at this is some arbitrary list, so its type should be list A. F is being applied to every element of the list here. So therefore, F should be of type A arrow something. Let us call that something B. Now, what is the resultant? What is the thing returned by map? Map on F, whatever returns a list, and one element of that list is Fx. F is of type A arrow B, X is of type A, so Fx is of type B. So one element is of type B, every element will also be of type B because recursively. So the type of map itself is A arrow B arrow list A arrow list B. So Srimati, do you understand this?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Note that A and B need not be the same. Okay, that's important to remember. In our examples, A and B are the same. In the first two examples that we give. For capitalize, I said, oh, it's a character arrow character, the map that is being used. 2 upper is the thing that is being used. For a square list, it is the squaring that is going from integer to integer. But it need not always, the A and B need not be the same. Okay, and yes, and we saw already one example of that because map length of L. Okay, you are mapping A here is list int, and B here is int. Okay, that is the thing.
Yes.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in the type of map, is it essential to have the first brackets from A to B?
Yes, it is very essential because very good question. If you don't put that, yes, why did we put the bracket here and why did we not put the bracket? Suppose you don't put any bracket, I told you that the default assumption is that it is right associative arrow, which means that if you don't put the bracket, it will be like any other function. A arrow, B arrow, list A arrow, list B. It will be a function of 3 arguments. First argument is of type A, second argument is of type B, third argument is of type list A, and the result is of type list B.
Okay, sir.
Whereas
you,
now you are saying that the first argument is a function type. Yes. So you need to put parenthesis. Very good question. Is it clear to others also? And notice that there is always an implicit parenthesization here, except we don't need to write it because it will make it too much. It will clutter it will reduce readability. So when you write a sequence of arrows, it's right associative. But when you want to explicitly say that something is a function, you have to put it within parentheses. Okay, especially here. It's important that you put it within parentheses. Okay, great. So here is another kind of higher order function, which is very useful. It's called filter. And it abstracts out this pattern. Okay, let us say you have a list of integers and you want to extract all the even numbers in that list. So if your original list is empty, then your answer is empty. Your original is some x followed by x's, then you have to make a decision whether should I add x to the output or not. In case x is even, you add x to the output and then recursively call all evens on x's. Okay. Otherwise, you don't add x to the output, you ignore x and you say all evens of x's. Is this clear? Yeah, let's try to code it. Okay, all events of empty list equals empty list. Is it clear?
Sir, how this color gets changed for if, then, and else?
How?
Like for the even some characters it is white, some characters it is blue.
So no, that is a property of the editor I'm using. So anything that is some keyword, it is putting in that color. But something that I am defining, it is putting it in some other color. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is some type declaration, so it's putting that in different color. It depends on the editor you use. Okay, this is Visual Studio Code, but if I'm using some Emacs or VA or some such thing, it will have its own color scheme. I mean, provided you have added some color scheme, etc. to your system. So you can also have a plain editor where there is no color, etc. But I suppose when I'm presenting to you people, it is better because you can see the difference between the different syntactic elements. Okay. Okay. Is this code clear? So let me just go and load this lecture 11. All events of, I don't know, 0 to 99. Yes, you see that it is only printing out the even numbers. But this pattern, what is the pattern? The pattern is that you have some test. You go through each element, you perform a test. If the element passes the test, you output it. Otherwise, you don't output it. Okay, this is the pattern. And this general pattern is called filter. Okay, what you do is, and filter is the abstraction of this pattern. Okay, here the test we used was even x. Okay, but in general, it could be any test p. And if it is a test, it means something that you apply on an element and the result is either true or false. So the test P will be of type A arrow bool. Okay. And then your input list is of type A, list A, and the output list is a sublist of the original list. Okay. You pick out some elements from the original list, you ignore some elements from the original list. So therefore, the output is also of type list A. Is the type clear of filter? Then you say filter of P empty list is empty list because there is nothing to filter out. Filter of P x colon x is if P holds for x, then it is x colon filter P x's. Right? You are retaining x and then you are doing filter on the remaining elements. Otherwise, you ignore x and you do filter P x's. Right? And your all events, for instance, is just filter even. Okay. So I could have just gone here and instead of doing all events like I did, I could have just said filter even 0 dot dot. Yes, I would have gotten the same. Okay, great. Is filter clear? Now, yes.
When we do any normal type declaration, suppose we want the type to be some specific type. Then we put it in the declaration. We say int A implies.
Yeah, you can say int arrow, bool arrow, int.
So if the function is something like even, which only takes an integer.
No, can you be a little louder, please? Unfortunately, there are sounds from the street coming here, and
okay, so
I was
trying to say, so normally when we have a function declaration, if you want to specify the type, we put the type in the declaration. We say int A implies some functions, etc., etc.
Right.
But here in this case, for example, if the function is defined only for some specific type, say for example, even x is only defined for int, like then if the list is not int, then it will give an error. But I'm not sure where it will give the error because
no. See, no. I don't understand. So, you want to say filter, you want to apply filter even and then apply it on a list of characters
or something like that. Yes, something like that.
Yeah, you want to do something like this, is it? Okay, so just a minute. So, okay,
let's see if
I understand you. So you're saying that I can do filter even of 0 dot dot 9. On the other hand, I can do filter, I don't know, is upper. Yes, you can do this. Now your question is, how do you know that I cannot do filter even SP sub.
Yes, sir.
Is that your
Something,
question? Is that your question?
yes, sir, something like that.
It will say error because the P, remember that the P has to be a arrow bool. The type here and the type here has to match. Even is of type, even has some type. It is of type, let us look at the type of even. Yes, it is integral A implies a arrow bool. As long as A is an integral type, it is a arrow bool. What is the type of your this thing, SP Suresh? That is list of characters. Sorry. Yeah, that's a list of characters. So that A and the A in the A arrow bool and the A here should match. Okay, and you know that character doesn't fall under the integral type class. That is the point. You see it? Yeah. So whatever it is, whatever type is here, it should be belong to the class integral. That is not there here. Okay, character is not an integral type. Okay. On the other hand, if you say a type of 2 upper, okay, it's of type char arrow char. Sorry, E sub. It is of type char arrow bool. And now, if you look at the type of I don't know 0.9, it will be a list of A where A is a numeric type. Yeah, where A is a numeric and enumerable. Okay, so two distinct constraints. So, and this is char, and this does not match. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so now nice thing about map and filter is that quite often you will combine map and filter, right? Because map says transform every element of the list to something else. Filter says retain only these elements and ignore these elements. Okay, now you can first filter out and then map, right? For instance, you can, given an original list L, you can filter out all the even elements. I mean, you can retain only the even elements, okay, and then square all of them, and then that is your result. Okay, square all the even numbers in a list. Okay, so and that is simply done by composing map with filter. Map square function on filter even L. Okay, and similarly, extract all vowels in a string and capitalize them. Okay, capitalize vowels. That is the function that I want to write. So what I do is filter each vowel. Each vowel is nothing but asking if the character is an element of A, E, I, O, U. Okay, so it checks whether C belongs to one of these 5 letters. So now I am doing first filter out each vowel and then map 2 upper to that result. Okay, and the dot here signifies function composition. F dot G applied to E is nothing but F applied to G of E. Okay, just like in mathematics. Okay, so this is what I have. Is this example clear? That,
so why didn't we use the dot in the,
yes, yes.
So why didn't we use the dot in the previous one? Like
yeah, we could have used. I'm just telling you that there are 2 ways of doing it.
okay. Yeah.
So instead of dot, we can use brackets.
Instead of dots, we could use brackets also. I mean, but no, notice that here I am not giving the argument here. I'm just saying cap vowels is map to upper dot filter is one. Okay, I'm not giving any argument here. That is because f dot g is a function and it is defined to be for every e it will map e to f of g of it. Yes. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
When we have this function composition, how is Haskell going to do the bracketing? As in, is it going to bracket filter this vowel, or is it going to bracket 2 upper dot filter?
No. Map to upper is one part. Filter is always another part. Okay, the dot has the whatever lowest this thing or whatever. So you will take whatever the whole thing on the left hand side and the whole thing on the right hand side. That is the map to upper is your left hand side function. Because remember, map is a function with 2 arguments, right? The first argument is a function and the second argument is a list. When you say map to upper, you are fixing the first argument. So now map to upper is a function with 1 argument. It's of type list A arrow list B. And filter is giving you filter itself is of type some A arrow bool arrow list A, right? So you are supplying the A arrow bool argument. So the filter is list A arrow list A. So so ultimately I should be saying cap pose of L equals, so I should be saying something like this. See, I should be writing cap pose of L equals map upper of yes, this is the thing.
Yes, sir.
But now, but now recall that the way to bracket this is to say map to upper, because any function only takes one argument. So it's map to upper of, here it is filter is now applied to L. Right? Because function application you should bracket leftwards. Type arrows you should bracket rightwards. Function, you first apply filter to ISO, that will result in a function, you apply that to L. Okay, so now this is of the form f applied to g applied to E. And we know that this is nothing but f dot g applied to E. So I'll say this is map to upper dot filter is applied to L. But cap pose of L equals map to upper dot filter is over L. Therefore, I can ignore writing the L part and I'm just writing cap pose equals map to upper dot. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's proceed. Okay. Now there is a nifty thing that you can do. I told you that you can do map and filter, and you can combine map and filter. And actually, we introduced list comprehension earlier. You will notice that list comprehension is nothing very mysterious. It is just a function, a recursive function defined using map and filter, and also something called concat. Okay. Recall that concat is a function from list of A to list A. Okay. Concat of empty list is empty list, but concat of L colon L is, okay, is L plus plus concat of Ls. Okay. So you are given a list of lists. You want to put everything together in order. That is what concat is. It's clear. So you can go here and check what concat does. Here, concat of I don't know, 0.9, comma 10.99, comma 100.999. Here, what my input is? My input is this. Yes. And what do you think the output should be? Can somebody tell?
0 to 999 mean numbers.
Yes.
In a list.
All numbers from 0 to 999. And its type is just a single list. Yeah, it is just a single list and not a list of lists. Okay.
So what if there would have been some repetition in the elements of the inner
Yeah,
list?
it will just repeat. It will just concatenate. It won't worry about repetition, etc. It will just put stuff together. That's all. Yeah, this is all there is to the definition. It doesn't care about repetition, etc. Okay, that is concat. Now, what I am trying to tell you is that using map, filter, and concat, you can actually translate your list comprehension, which looks like some very special notation, right, into this. Recall that a list comprehension is of the form E such that Q1, Q2, dot, 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 Qn, where each Qi is of the form, it's either a Boolean condition, okay, or it is a generator of the form P belongs to L. Okay, you recall that, right? You will say that, oh, set of all n squared such that n belongs to 1 dot dot 10, comma n not equal to something. Okay, you write things like that. So each Qi is either a Boolean condition or a generator. Where in this generator, it need not just, the P need not just be a variable, but it can be a pattern. Okay, that is the important thing. And L is any list valued expression. L is any expression that returns a list ultimately. Okay, so now it's actually very simple. You can give a recursive definition of what this notation means. Okay, so if you have E of a Boolean condition followed by a bunch of qualifiers, as they are called, it is nothing but, oh, if B then list E, if B then collection of all E such that Q holds, else empty list. Okay. where Q is a further list of qualifiers. Okay, so this is the recursive definition. You want to recursively define this notation. Okay, recursively you are using it for where the list of qualifiers is one list. Okay, list of all E such that Q holds. Q is a bunch of qualifiers. Okay, okay. So that is if your first thing is a Boolean condition. If your first thing is a generator, so it depends only on generators of quantifiers to its left. So this B. Okay, it shouldn't depend on things to its right. Okay. Now, if it's a generator, then this is what you do. Remember that the only subtlety here is that the generator has a pattern. Okay, you can have a pattern here and not just a variable. Okay, now what you will say is that, okay, so first F, okay, so what you do is you map F on L. Every element in L, okay, you map F on it, you apply F on every element in the L. What is F going to do? If the input in L is of this pattern P, then you will just recursively evaluate E, all list of all E such that Q. Otherwise, you are just going to return empty list. Okay, so you take L, you apply F on L, you apply F on every element in L, and F you can see takes an element and returns a list. Okay, so once you have mapped this, if you originally had a list, now you will have a list of lists after you do map FL. So you have to concatenate using concat. Okay, and you don't need to necessarily know this. You don't need to know this for programming Haskell. This is just a matter of curiosity, and I'm just telling you this just to indicate that there are many such syntactic niceties in Haskell which are just that. Okay, they can all be defined in terms of something more primitive. Okay, unlike in other languages where something like a list notation would have to be a fundamental part of your core language. Okay, I'm just telling you that list comprehension is not part of your core language. It can be defined in terms of other stuff. Okay, if you don't understand this much, don't worry. You can go through this slowly later. Okay, it doesn't hurt to not this thing. But one small thing we need to learn from this is that this concat followed by map of FL is very common. In case where F is a function that takes elements to lists, then when you know map FL, it will take a list to list of lists. But when you want to squash them together, so you do concat followed by map FL, and you don't need to do it this way every time. Haskell offers you something called concat map, which automatically does this. Okay.
Sir? So I don't understand how map FL is a list of lists. I mean, I didn't...
yeah, right. Because what is the type of map? Let's go back.
It's A to B.
Yeah, A arrow, B arrow, list A arrow, list B. What if your B is a list type? What if I have map of, I don't know. So, yeah, that's a function. Oh, sorry, I haven't introduced this notation yet. Let's say. That's a function, right? What is the type of F? A arrow list A.
Yeah.
Now, if I do map F, what will be the type?
Oh, it's going to go to list of list B in the sense.
List of list B, list of list A.
List of list A, yeah.
Sorry, type of map. Right? That is what I was telling you. That this F takes an element, it takes one pattern P and it returns a list. It takes another pattern, any other pattern, it will return empty list. So it is definitely producing a list, but I don't want a list of lists as a result. If you do map FL, I'll get a list of lists, but I want a single list, so I'll concat.
So, but like, so you're saying it takes, okay, so like when you take E, first checks if it belongs to L, right? Like
No, it doesn't check if it belongs to L. It already belongs to L. You are going to map F on every element in L. Map FL means it maps F to every element of L. What does F do on each element of L? It first checks whether that element is of this pattern. If it is of that pattern P, it will return E, which is what you want, right? and apply further qualifiers to it. E is such that all these qualifiers hold. It will return that list. Otherwise, you know that the element of L does not fit this pattern at all. Then it will say there is nothing to return. So it will return empty list.
Okay, so yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, but if you don't get this completely, it doesn't matter. It was there. This slide has been there for a few years now, and I'm not removing it.
So what
it's
is
not?
what is this pattern? This pattern P.
Pattern is anything. No, pattern could be some for instance, I could do this. No, for instance, don't you recall this that we said that for instance we did. I could do this, right? So okay, I have a list of lists. I'll check whether X for every element of the form X colon XS that belongs to L. That is the pattern. Do you understand now?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, in general, you will write just some X or whatever, but I'm just saying, sorry, I'll just say X squared. So this will.
Yeah.
Give me a list of lists now. 0.9 empty list 15 .5, and I can also say 15.5 that automatically evaluates empty. So now I have a list of 5 elements. First element is 0.9, second is empty list, third is empty list, fourth is 15.25, fifth is 15.5, which is also an empty list. Now I am saying pick out all the non-empty lists in this list I have given and form the squares. What do you think the result would be now? Of this expression?
Sir, I think it will be 0 to 25 to 25.
It won't be 225. Why? Because 15.5 is an empty list, remember. So it will just be 0 to 25. This 15.5 is empty, right?
Yeah.
Because in the dot notation, so that's right. So there are 3 empty lists, 2 non-empty lists. It will only pick out the non-empty lists and do the square of the head. Okay. So that is why you can give patterns here. Patterns are another way of just giving a variable here and putting some condition on the variable later. Okay, instead you are implicitly doing that. Anyway, so this is just a curiosity. Let me not waste more time on this. Yes. So for instance here, just an example will make it clear. N squared such that n belongs to 1.7 such that even n is nothing but concat map of f applied to 1.7 where f of n is nothing but n squared such that even of n. Okay, because you've taken care of this, so you want to just do that. Okay, so now this is nothing but concat map of f 1.7 where this is again the list comprehension notation, but this is just one small thing. So you will say this remember is like this. If b, then this, else that. So you will just say if even n, then n squared, then list consisting of n squared. This is the singleton list. Else empty list. Okay. So now concat map of f on this where f is this. Okay. Now okay. So now but now you see that this is nothing but concat of I'm applying f on every element in one. So check if 1 is even, it is not even. So it will be the empty list. 2 is even, so you will consider the singleton list consisting of 4. 3 is not even, so it will be the empty list. 4 is even, so it will be singleton list consisting of 4 squared, which is 16. Similarly, empty list, singleton list 36, empty list, and finally if you concatenate all of them, you will get 41636, which is what you want from here. Yes. So this is just to tell you that there is no magic in the list comprehension example, and that this map, filter, etc. are all very powerful functions that can really add much to your language. Okay, they do add a lot of power to your language.
So
Okay.
why is there no space between concat and map?
Oh, that is what I told you. No, Haskell gives you a built-in function called concat map, which is doing the same thing as concat followed by map. Because you cannot say concat after that map, after that FL, you have to put a bracket. And it is a common enough thing that Haskell offers you a new function called concat. Okay.
Oh, so it is a single it is a single inbuilt function. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
So
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
the only reason that fn outputs a list is so that it could be an empty list, because it can be
Yeah,
more than
instead you could have chosen maybe or whatever, but Haskell chooses this because it has concat and it does anyway have to produce a list, so it is chosen.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's only 0 elements or 1 element.
Yeah, right. Here, that's right. But in this recursive case also it will be multiple elements or one element, because in this case there is no such thing, because n is not a pattern. You see. N is a catch-all pattern. Everything fits that pattern. But in general, if you had an x:x kind of thing here, then again it will be in this case it can be a long list or a single or an empty list. And here also, if there was some conditions after even n, then you could again have a empty list or a non-empty list. That's all you can say. In this example, it so happens that it is empty list or singleton list. Is it clear?
So can you give an example, if you have time, can you give an example of one of these that has a long list output?
Of this translation? Yeah, you'll have to give more qualifiers, etc. But I mean, let us move on, because
Okay,
I can do that for you later, because I'll never ask you to translate this. This was just a curiosity. Okay, you don't need to this thing. So you can work out an example on your own, I suppose. Add more qualifiers. Give an example. Put a pattern in this. Okay, instead of n, which catches everything, you should maybe try to look at different other types other than numbers. In which case you will actually be able to write some patterns. Okay. Okay. Let's move on, because I have more to do. The prime example you saw last time, right? So I have just, does anybody want to go over this? Somebody says we want to go over this, we will, otherwise we'll move on. Who wants to go over this? Don't be shy. If you want to go over this, we'll go over this.
Yeah, sir. Could you please go over this?
Yes, good. Yes. So suppose I want to generate the first 100 primes. Then I told you that the easy way is to generate all primes and then just take the first 100 primes. Okay. And how do you generate all primes? That is what we are going to do here. It's you say that prime. So the way we'll achieve it by using the Eratosthenes sieve method. The sieve method first has a prime. Okay, and then it will go through the list of all numbers and eliminate all multiples of that prime you already have. Okay. Once you have eliminated all the multiples of the prime that you already have, then you will apply the sieve method on that again recursively. Okay. So you will basically so the way you do it is you will start with 2 and write down every number. Then you will say, okay, 2 is prime. Strike out all the multiples of 2. Then you will say, now once you are done with this, now you look at what your first element is. It is 3. Then you say, 3 is prime. Strike out all the multiples of 3 now. Remember that you already struck out all the multiples of 2. Among the remaining elements, you strike out all the multiples of 3. Then you look at what is the first thing that is left, which is 5. Okay, say that is the next prime. Now, among all the numbers that are left over, strike out all multiples of 5. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
But in the description that I gave, you cannot strike out all the multiples of 2 and then come back and pick the first element. Why?
No, because there will be infinitely many.
Exactly. Okay. So, but thankfully Haskell is lazy. So Haskell says, all you want is that you want to know that some element has survived and become the first element. Okay. The moment you have a first element, I'll output it. You don't worry. Okay. So The definition basically is that you write it as if it were an infinite process. You say that C of P colon X is, okay, P is a prime, put it aside, but take out all elements that are, remove all elements that are multiples of P. Or in other words, retain only those elements such that X mod P is not equal to 0. Okay, X mod P is not equal to 0 means X is not a multiple of P. Is that clear? So you are retaining only those elements that are not multiples of P and then applying the sieve method on them recursively. Is it clear? But what kind of recursion is this? Because in this recursion, there is nothing decreases. Originally, your 2 dot dot has infinitely many elements. After you did the sieve, again you will have infinitely many elements. So there is nothing that is decreasing, but Haskell will still make progress because all it needs to do is it needs to determine that there is a first element in this list. The moment it says there is a first element, it will just return it as your next prime. Okay, and then it will try to do some sieve of thing in recursive. Is it fine? So if you did this, then the nth prime is nothing but primes bang bang n minus 1. Or if you want the first n primes, you will say take n primes. That is what I have given here. Yes, primes is just this function I have written out. N primes is nothing but take n primes. And yeah, so and the way it works is that, yes, primes is nothing but sieves of 2 dot dot, sieve of 2 dot dot. What does this say? This says, the first element is a 2 dot dot is of the form 2 colon something, 2 colon 3 dot dot, remember. Okay, so it says, okay, remove 2, that is my next prime. And now what do you do? Among 3 dot dot, remove everything that is a multiple of 2. Okay, so you retain only those things that are not multiples of 2. So you say x belonging to 3 dot dot such that x mod 2 is not equal to 0. Okay, but then that, if you want to do this, that is fine. But now let's try to compute this x belonging to 3 dot dot such that x mod 2 is not equal to 0. You will first apply it to 3 and you'll see what happens. What happens, Shakti? Can you tell?
8 will come out because
3 will survive because 3 mod 2 is not equal to 0.
Yeah.
So this is nothing but 3 colon x from 4 dot dot such that x mod 2 is not equal to 0. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So now sieve of this, remember that sieve of p colon x is p dot p colon sieve of something. So it will say, to take 3 outside also. Now your whole thing will become, earlier it was 2 colon sieve something. Now the sieve something is 2 colon 3 colon sieve of, what is it? It will be all y such that y belongs to this whole set. Okay, y
Sir got cut off, right? Sir, if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
Sorry, there is a power cut here. I think this is the, ever since, okay. So there has been a power cut here off and on ever since May, unfortunately. Anyway, so I shall reshare my screen. Where is share screen? Can you see my screen? Yes, yes.
Sir, can I ask a doubt related to that primes?
Yeah, 1 minute. I'll show my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, ask your doubt. Yes, please.
Sir, this computation does not happen unless primes is called, right?
Yes, yes. This computation doesn't happen unless primes is called.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay.
Right, anyway, so now what happens is that now this is 2 colon 3 colon, we were at this point. we were at this point, 2 colon 3 colon set of all y's such that y belongs to this long expression. Y belongs to the already filtered set, because you have to keep on filtering on top of filtering. Okay, you've done one level filter. Only those y's that have passed the first test, you will apply the second test. Is that clear? Yes, because you have taken out 2 primes. The first level you will test against divisibility by 2. Those elements that pass that, for those y's you will do divisibility test by 3. Okay, and now if you go internally that there is 4 fails the divisibility test by 2, so you will throw it away. Then you will come to 5 passes the divisibility test by 2, then you will take it. So then the internal list becomes y belonging to 5 colon whatever x such that x belongs to 6 dot dot such that x naught 2 is not equal to 0. But now you will apply the, so this internal thing becomes 5 colon yeah. So now you will apply the test of whether 5 mod 3 is not equal to 0 or not. It is not equal to 0, so it will survive. It will come to, then you will actually say 2 3 5, 2 followed by 3 followed by 5 followed by, now you will see, but you will now have to do 3 level filtering. First level you will test against divisibility by 2, then divisibility by 3, then divisibility by 5. Okay, so actually Haskell does all the hard work for you. If you are to do it in another language, you will have to write your own loops and then try to do this divisibility test one after the other, etc. Okay, but Haskell allows you to very simply do all this. And we also saw examples of how, if you say I only want the first 100 primes, it will repeat this procedure as long as it produces 100 elements here instead of 3, and then it will stop at that point. Okay, and it will give you whatever you wanted. Okay, yes. So for instance, if I say n primes, which was, so take 100 primes, will just give me the first 100 primes. Okay, okay, great. So now,
so when we are applying the n primes, like 100 primes, then first it need to have the list of all primes.
It
then
does not, who Shakti, that is what I am telling you. It does not need to have the list of all primes. I am telling you how it is generating it. Recall what take does. Don't you remember what we did in the last class? Take, etc. can work on infinite lists, right? Because what is the definition of take? My take, let us say.
Oh, so yes.
My take of 0
yeah.
colon anything is empty list. My colon of my take of n colon my take of n of x colon x's, x followed by my take of n x's. Yes, and this is what you have. So if you want to say take 100, the moment you reach 0, you will ignore it, right? So from 100 you will go to 99, then 98, 97, etc. Ultimately an empty list case, but you will come to 0, and if you come to 0, you can always say you will always say empty list, so you can stop there. Is it clear, Shakti?
Yes, yeah. Thank
you
you.
don't need to generate the list first. Okay, recall that the main thing is that this excess is not, I'll write it here in words. Is not a list of the form x1, x2, ... Okay, it is really an expression of type E, which when evaluated produces a list. Is it clear, Shakti?
Yes, yeah.
So you can choose to evaluate it or not. In the case where the first argument is 0, you don't choose to evaluate it. Okay, fine. So this is the thing. Let me move on. Okay, so there are other higher order functions as well, which are very useful. here is a function called take while. It is very much like take. Take NL returns the n element prefix of a list, but instead of taking n elements, you can check whether it is, you can check you can take elements based on a property. So here you are saying take while a arrow, take while is a function whose type is a arrow bool arrow list a arrow list a. You will see that the type is the same as the type of filter, but the behavior is different. Okay, so look at this. Take while of greater than 7, 8, 1, 9, 10 will return the list consisting of the elements 8. Okay. What would filter greater than 7, 8, 1, and 10 give you? Will only give you a prefix, okay, whereas filter will give you a sub list. It can skip it. Hello, can somebody confirm that you can hear me?
Sorry, sir. Could you please repeat it again? Like
No. Can you confirm that you can hear me? Anyone?
Sir, we can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Because there is some power fluctuation going on here. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'm saying, can you see this take while? Can someone confirm?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
we can see and hear you clearly now.
Yeah. So I was asking the difference between take while and filter. What would filter greater than 7, 8, 1, 9, 10 be? Can someone reply?
8, 9, 10.
Exactly, 8, 9, 10. Because filter will go through the whole list and return every element that satisfies your property. Whereas take while it is like take. So it should give you a prefix. Except that instead of taking so many number of elements, it will take as long as a property is true. Okay. As long as your element greater than, is it clear? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would like somebody to keep responding once in a while, because the power situation here is bad and I am off the data and it's not clear whether sometimes when I'm online and you're not responding, or whether you can't hear me at all. Okay. So take while less than 10, 8, 1, 9, 10 is 8, 1, 9. Clearly. What is filter less than 10, 8, 1, 9, 10? Can someone tell?
8, 1, 8, 9.
8, 1, 8, 9. Why 8, 1, 8, 9?
8, 1, 9. That's
8, 1, 9. Okay. In this case, take while and filter return the same thing. What could be the code for take while? Can we write my own take while? My TW, let me call it. And this time I would like somebody else to tell me what the code is, so that I don't need to wonder whether I'm online or not. My TW A arrow bool arrow list A my TW of P, a predicate and a empty list. So can somebody tell me what the cases are?
empty
Sir,
list.
empty list.
Okay, cool. Go for the next one.
Sir, can I volunteer?
Yes, please go.
If px,
Yeah,
then x is to take while xs. I
x
mean
colon
pxs.
x colon might take while p xs. Okay, why did you say x is to x followed by if? Okay, or x colon. Else what do you do?
Sorry. Else empty list.
Exactly. In the case of filter, what would you do instead?
Else my TV PS.
Exactly. Okay, that is the difference. Here with take while, the moment it becomes false, you stop. Okay. So here is a nice application. So if you want to take the first position in a string S where the character C occurs, you just say take while not C S. Okay. As long as the characters in your string S are not equal to C, you will take all of them. The moment it becomes equal to C, you stop. Now you have a list of elements such that all of those elements are not equal to C and they are the prefix. And if you just take their lengths, that will give you the position of C in S, the first position in S where C occurs. Yeah, and you have a drop while also, which is exactly like drop. Okay, but with a but with a predicate. Can somebody now dictate my DW? My DWP of empty list is empty list. Srimati, you have been silent for a bit. Can you tell?
So my W of
P x colon x's is
if px, then
you have to drop it. So dropping it means what?
so then you just do my WP axis.
Exactly. My DW of P x's. Else, so P does not satisfy x does not satisfy P.
So you just stop.
You just stop and you return x colon x's. You see, x colon x's is your list, so you don't do anything to your list. Okay, yeah. So you have to drop as long as P is satisfied. The moment P stops being satisfied, you just don't drop anything. You just leave it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is the drop while. You have two other nice things, something called zip, which I'll just take some 5 minutes. It's now 3:09 according to my machine. So I'll take till 3:25 or so, since we started 10 minutes late. That's okay for you, right? Do you all have, does anybody have a class at 3:30?
So BSc first year doesn't have a class. I don't know about the NSC ones.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go till 3:25 or so. Okay, sorry about that. Zip is a nice function. You give it two lists, it will give you a list of pairs. Okay, this is very, very useful. So zip of empty list, anything is empty list. Zip of anything empty list is empty list. Zip of x colon x is y colon y is x comma y followed by zip of x space. And here is a nice application for this. Suppose I have a list of marks or something. I have a list of strings, let us say. I have a list of strings. I don't know. So give me some strings. F G H I J K L M N O. Now I want to say this is the first string, that is the second string, that is the third string. Okay. Then a nice simple way to do it is to say I'll call it indexed strings. Yes, what have I done here? I have applied the zip function, okay, on one dot instance. How can I apply it on an infinite list? Because it suffices for one list to be finite. Because if the first list is empty, then no matter what the second list is, the overall result is empty. The second list is empty, then no matter what the first list is, the overall result is empty, right? So that is it. So what do you think will be indexed strings? Let us check it out. Let us first compile this, save this, reload that. You see, I have 1, ABCD, 2, FGHIJ, 3, KLMNO. This is not the only kind of application you can have for this. You can have a lot of applications, but once you have zip, you can actually do something more useful, namely zip width. Zip width says, okay, I mean, as long as you are doing something on two elements, two lists, taking each element of the list and combining them somehow, why don't you combine them with a function? Okay, so a general function on with two arguments, one of type A and another of type B, is of type A arrow B arrow C. That's clear, right?
Yes, sir.
So then the first list of type is, so instead of the comma function, we are using some general function f. Then you have a first list, which is list A, then list B. The output list will be list C, because you are applying F on each pair of corresponding elements in the first list and second list. Okay, so zip width of F, empty list, anything is empty list. Zip width of F, anything empty list is empty list. In fact, I don't even need to say F, anything empty list, anything is empty list. Anyway, finally, zip width of F applied on x colon x's and y colon y's is nothing but F applied to xy followed by zip width of x, F x's y's. Okay, is this clear? This is the crucial recursive case. Okay, this is the crucial recursive case, and now I can use this very effectively in lots of situations. For instance, I might have I can do zip width of 1 2 3 4 5 1 dot dot 5 zip width of, what do? I do multiplication, the star function on 1 dot dot 5 and 50 dot dot 100, 50 dot dot 100. How do you know? Yes, I'll get this. I'll get 1 times 50, which is 50, 2 times 51, which is 102, 3 times 52, which is 156, 4 times 54, which is, sorry, 3 times 52, which is 156, 4 times 53, which is 212, finally 5 times 54, which is 270. Is it clear? And then it will stop, because the first list, you have run out of elements in the first list, even though there are more elements in the second list. Can someone confirm that this is clear to them?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Srimati, are you
Can you do zip with parenthesis comma?
Yes, we can do. Who asked this? Chandradeep, yes. I think it is there in the slides also. Yes, we can do. Yeah, you can do zip width like this. Yes, okay. Fine. So now I have 10 minutes. I'll introduce something, but we'll come back to this and do it in more detail in the next class. So we have seen several patterns of doing things. Till now we have seen things where you look at the list element by element. You do something on every element of the list, or you do something on the corresponding elements in two lists. These are the kinds of things that you've seen. Finally, you can do some other pattern, which is like this. Other pattern of computation, which is you want to somehow do some operation involving all the elements of the list. Okay, you want to combine elements in a list in some manner or the other. And here is one form of combination. One simple thing that we have seen, sum, which is a built-in function. Sum of empty list is 0. Sum of x colon x is x plus sum of x. Okay, so here it is not like f of x colon sum of x. In that case, you are applying some function f to every element and you are leaving it as such. You are not combining two different elements of the list. But here you are combining the elements of the list using a function. Here is another example, product, which is again a built-in function. Product of empty list is 1. Product of x colon x's is x times product of x's. Okay, you can check that these things do work. Yes, it works. By the way, product is one simple way of defining your factorial function. Factorial n equals yes, you have factorial set. Enum from to 1 means you enumerate from 1 till whatever number I give as argument. Okay, and then I do that and then I dot with product, which means that I'm doing product of enum from 2 of 1 comma n. Okay, factorial n is product of enum from 2 1 n, and instead of writing it that way, I'm just writing product dot enum from 2 1 and dropping the actual argument. So you can do. Yes, we'll get all this. I suppose you can also do factorial of some negative numbers and it will work correctly, because enum from to 1 of a negative number will actually be an empty list. So there is nothing to do product of that, it will give you 1 always. So factorial 1 will give you 1. Factorial 0 will also give you 1 as you are expecting it to be. Factorial of any negative number will give you 1. Okay, this is a very simple way of defining factorial and the most effective way. Anyway, Haskell automatically gives you this product function. So we are talking about this pattern of sum and product. What is the pattern here? Yes, you are combining elements of the list using a function f. In the first case, the function was plus. In the second case, the function was product, but not just the function, but also an initial value. In the case the list is empty, you return an initial value v. Okay, so the common pattern is that you are combining elements. You're combining elements in a list using a function. In this case, the functions are plus and multiplies. They are functions of type int arrow, int arrow, int, and the initial value was 0 in the first case, 1 in the second case. That is int, okay, of type int, and then you have a list int, okay, and then finally the answer you return is an int. Is the type clear? And the computation is also clear. Combine fv empty list is v, because if the list is empty, you should return the initial value v. Combine fv x colon x's is you recursively combine, just like you did sum of x's here and product of x's here. You recursively combine all the elements of x's using f and v, and then finally you apply f on x and that result. So tell me if it is clear. I will move on.
No, sir.
What is not clear? Tell me.
Sir, Sir, I did not. Sir, f is f. In the previous example, f was addition or multiplication.
Or multiplication. V yes. in the sum example, f v was 0, because if you come to the empty list, you returned 0, right? How did you return?
Okay, 0? Okay. So thank you. Sir.
That is the identity element of that operation. Basically.
Okay.
V is that. Okay, so you should give two arguments. One is the function using which you combine, and the other is the base value, basically.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
So recursively combine x's using f and v, and then on that result you apply f and the first element. F applied to the first element and that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, Romit. Yes.
Can we get rid of the v thing by putting a parameter on singleton set? F of singleton x is x, and then f.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. Yes. Okay. You can get rid of that when you do that. Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes.
So here the domain of function is given as int arrow, int, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It need
so
not
the second
be.
time should
in
be
general,
list of
in general, it need not be. Yeah. Okay. Yes. No, sorry. I didn't let you complete your question. Okay. Here it is given as int arrow, int. What was your question?
Yes. Yes.
No, what is the question?
Should it be int arrow, list int arrow, int? Since it is given list of integers in the second.
No, I didn't understand. Where should it be list of int? Here?
Here.
No.
Yes,
that is a function plus. No, that f is the function plus. Plus is only acting on two integers, right? The f is the combining function. In one case it is plus, in another case it is star. Okay. The first argument is the combining function. The second argument is the initial value 0. And the final argument is your original, the list. Okay. This is what. So for instance, sum is combined using plus and 0. Product is combined using star and 1. Yeah. Now is it clear? Yes, Ishan. Yes.
Sir, in the definition, it is given int arrow, int, but in the next line we write combine fv and in a particular list. So would it not be int arrow, list of int?
No. See the right, but recall what I'm saying. The argument of combine takes 3 arguments. Okay. What is the first argument? It is this. This is the type of f. Recall that we are talking about.
Yes, I
recall
got it.
that we are talking about higher order functions. Okay. The first argument is the type of f. F itself is a function, so it has type int arrow, int. Okay. The second argument is this v. And unfortunately, I'm not doing it off the iPad. Otherwise, I can write arrow pointers and so on. This type of v is this int. Okay. Finally,
sir, I
the
get
type
it
of
now.
this list is that list.
Okay, sir.
Clear?
Okay, sir. Yeah, I get it now. Thank
Okay.
you, sir.
So sum is combined using plus and 0. Product is combined using star and 1. Is it clear? So yes, everyone. Srimati, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, here is an example. Okay, so you don't need to define your own combine. It's a built-in function called fold R. Fold R means fold from the right. Okay, and that is because you do combine. You first do the recursive case to the right. Okay, if you come back here, you're doing it's fold right because you're parenthesizing towards your right. So sum of 1, 2, 3 is 1 plus sum of 2, 3. That is equal to 1 plus within parenthesis 2 plus sum of 3. That is equal to 1 plus within parenthesis 2 plus 3 plus sum of empty list. That is equal to 1 plus Is it clear? You do sum to the right. It should also be clear that you can always do sum from the left. Okay, the 1 plus 2 and add that to 3, add the 0 plus 1, add that to 2, add that to 3, etc. And that is also a natural way of doing stuff. But somehow this is more natural. And Haskell offers this, and this is called fold right. The other thing, as you can imagine, is called fold left, fold L. Okay. So fold right. Okay, this is something offered by Haskell. And now we are giving a more general type. You see, so let's ignore the type for the moment. The function is exactly the same as combine that we had earlier. Okay, combine fv x colon xs is fx combine fv xs, the same thing. Fold R of fv x colon xs is f applied to x and fold R fv xs. Fold R of fv empty list is v. Is the definition clear? At least we'll come to the type in a minute. Is the definition clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why is the type like this? Okay, let us try to figure it out. Fold the f here. The f here is a function that has two arguments, right? X is the first argument, and the fold R fv x is the second argument. In general, f is a function with two arguments, so it's of type a arrow, b arrow, c. Okay, so let us try to actually figure it out here. So I've jumped up this thing, but it's okay. Okay. So in general, f is a function which takes two arguments and produces the result. Oh my god! Just a second, please. I am getting a phone call. Hello? Yes? Hello, can you hear me? I'm back.
Yes, sir.
Hello? Yes, okay. So f is a function on two arguments. So in general, its type is a arrow, b arrow, c. So I should have fold R also. So fold R is of type where the first argument is a function argument. So it's of type a arrow, b arrow, c. Arrow some value which is of type d. Arrow some list which is of type list e. Arrow it will return a list which is of type list f. So this is all you know right now. Okay. Sorry, it will return a value whose type is f. Okay. This is all we know. Is it clear? I have written the most general type possible for fold R. Now, first point is the first argument f, the first argument of f here, x, is also an element of the list x. So what can you say about A and D? Sorry, A and E?
At the same.
They are the same. So instead of writing list E, I can write list A. Okay, first simplification. Secondly, the return value of folder is of type f, we said, but the return value of folder is V here in the case when the list is empty. Okay, and we said that the initial value is also of type D. So what can we write then? Therefore, the return value of folder in one case at least is V, whose type is D, as it is given here. So what can you say about f then?
So f and D are equal to D. Can you say that?
Yeah, f is equal to D. So first,
Yes.
yeah, we can do this. And yes, what Srimati says is correct, because this folder, the second argument of f is of type B, but that is a value of folder on the recursive call. Okay, and folder's return value is D. So we can immediately say that both C and D is both D is equal to B is something that we can say. Okay, right. But notice that the return value of f and the return value of folder has to be of the same type, because in the non-empty case, f of x applied to something should be the same as folder of something, something, something. And the return value of folder is B, the return value of f is C. Okay, that they have to be the same. So you write B. Okay, so you can mathematically sort of figure out what the type of folder is. That is the type that is given there. A arrow B arrow B arrow B arrow list A arrow B. Okay, and just figuring out the type is just a little work. That is the most general type. But the folder computation is very simple. Okay, it is exactly the same as combine that we saw earlier. And this example also we have already worked out. Folder of FB x1, x2, x3 is nothing but f applied to x1 of f of x1 and folder recursively on x2, x3, which is f applied to x2 whatever. And this thing is nothing but this inner folder is nothing but this. Finally, this inner folder is nothing but V. Folder FB empty list is V. So you finally have this. Okay.
So why is the type of f A arrow B arrow B?
Because it is a function that takes two arguments and returns a result. Okay, so I just now derived it's of type A arrow B arrow C, and I just now showed that C is equal to B. Okay, I'll go over this in the next class. Okay, I'll go over this in the next class. Don't worry. I'll start from the general folder and we'll continue. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
So this folder. So this thing that we just defined, folder. So is this the basic property that like the type class foldable has? Like so
yes. The type class foldable is every type that allows a folding,
right? Okay.
Not fold or a fold function. A general.
Yeah. I understand.
Very good. Well caught. Well noticed. Yeah. Once we have defined folder, then we'll just, when you see foldable, you say that is any type where I can define a fold function. Okay. So a list is something where you can define a fold. You can define a fold on list. So list belongs to foldable. Okay. Anything you can define a list, not a type constructor. Okay. Who asked this question?
Sir, Rajdeep.
Rajdeep, yes. It is not a property of the type. It is a property of the type constructor. In this case, it is the list formation.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Sir.
Yes, Srimati.
So what is the property of, you said something's a
property. We'll talk about later. It doesn't matter. Okay. Right now you don't need to worry. When you do something on GHCA, when you ask for the type, it will say foldable T. It will say. Okay. It is the property of a type constructor. We'll come to that later. Okay. In the next class, I'll talk about that. Okay, and show you what. I'll end with this. Just notice that instead of writing this f in prefix form, you can write it in infix form. You can write x1 f within backticks, etc. You can write it like this: x1 f, x2 f, whatever. And this is nothing except that instead of empty list, you are using V, and instead of colon, you are using F. Okay, folder is really the same as the list structure, except that instead of empty list, you are using v, and instead of colon, you are using the function f. Okay, so I'll leave you with this. We'll come back in the next class and we'll go more in depth about folder and a fold left, and then we'll see that folder can also be used on infinite lists, etc., etc. Okay, we'll see all that in the next class. So I promise to give you an assignment definitely within the next 2 days, but I'll give you some 10 days or so, because there is Deepavali that comes in between. So I know that you won't be able to spend all your time on this. Okay, so but it's high time I give an assignment, because you have done some 5-6 classes using lists and I have not given you anything to practice on. Sorry about that. I'll give it to you today or tomorrow. Okay, so if you have any questions, I'll answer. Otherwise, we can stop.
So when will be the midsum of
Yeah, midsum. So what constraints do you people have regarding the midsum?
no constants whatsoever?
Okay, in which case what I'll do is I'll try to see, because I didn't want to give a midsum before giving you enough some practice on lists. Okay, so maybe I'll even skip the midterm. I'll give one extra assignment and we'll have an end sum. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, because I think we don't have enough time. We haven't spent enough time, and I haven't given you enough things to practice with. We'll do an end sum. Maybe I'll give you a couple of quizzes later once you have covered some material, but no midsum. I'll just give you assignments. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great then. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sure. Then I'll stop streaming and I'll stop sharing, etc., etc.
Thank you,
Are
sir.
there any questions on chat
Thank you, sir.
which I ignored?
No, sir.